Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann. I'm also known as the Habit Fixer, and I love helping women to regain their mojo and age well. And I do that through EFT, which is a really simple tapping technique, nutrition, skincare, and digital products. My guest today is so lovely. He's got an absolutely huge heart. His name is Simon Rogers and describes himself as an emotional agility coach. Welcome, Simon.
Hello, glad to be here.
Can you firstly, before you launch in, I know you're going to be talking about habits to enjoy being you, which I think is
Yeah.
absolutely perfect, particularly, well, at any time of year. But I
Mm,
wonder if you could just explain a little bit about what an emotional agility coach is.
it's a very good question. So the reason I chose emotional agility, because it is a bit of jargon, to be honest, isn't it? Not many people go, "Oh, I know exactly what that is." Um, but I think it does really clearly describe what is the difference and how does it make a difference to somebody if they start to be a little bit curious about what emotional agility is. So simply put, emotional agility is how we are with emotions, how we're being with emotions. So usually a step before that is emotional intelligence, not a term that most people are very aware of. Um, and emotional intelligence is essential and is a part of emotional agility. But emotional intelligence is essentially, what are we feeling? Why are we feeling what we're feeling? Rather than what we're feeling. So to give an idea really briefly, is that if you imagine that what you're feeling is like a puzzle. Right? It's got loads of different puzzle pieces. And if you've got somebody who's really keen at making puzzles, then they're going to want to put those pieces together really quickly, right? And they want to get the sense of the big picture, right? The thing is with emotional intelligence, if you don't feel everything that you're feeling and acknowledge it, well, actually, what you do is you just take a few pieces of the puzzle and then you start putting those together. And then you see an image on that, and then you assume you know why you're feeling what you're feeling. And it's not necessarily why you're feeling, and I'll get more into that. That's most important is how you're being with what you're feeling that actually matters. So emotional agility is how you're being with what you're feeling and to get a full picture.
I love that because a lot of people think that, they should suppress their emotions. And certainly I was brought up to be a good girl and do all that sort of stuff. And I know that obviously things are changing over time, but it is really, really important to point out that we are human beings and we all have feelings and they're all valid, even though some of them might not feel so great. So I love that you're talking about this, Simon. So why don't you just launch into what it is that you're going to tell us?
Yeah, well, I thought about like how do I have this massive topic, and there's so much that I'd love to share. But I thought like what's a really important kind of takeaway that can be useful for people to put into practice straight away and may challenge their current paradigm a little bit, because obviously every bit of growth comes from a bit of challenge from the way that we're seeing something. So I want to share with you an idea, a model, and then hopefully something practical that you can take away. Obviously, in the theme of enjoy being you, because emotional agility, what's the perfect embodiment of that? Well, you enjoy being you, uniquely you, and you can enjoy this unique opportunity to be you and your life that you're creating. Because whether we like it or not, we are creating with what we say, what we think, what we everything that we express is a form of creation. Whether you like it or not is kind of up to you. So if we can do it more consciously, that enables us to enjoy things more and enjoy being ourselves. So the idea that I wanted to share is essentially that feeling itself. If you want to build a platform to enjoy yourself, then you need to be more present. You need to acknowledge and know what's actually there. And the quickest way to develop more self-awareness, which leads to more presence, is to develop an awareness of feeling more so than your internal dialogue of thought. So there's a very distinct difference between internal language, right? Your self-talk, inner dialogue, whatever you want to call it, all the same thing. So essentially, information that's being processed through your head brain, usually in pictures and words, but typically in words. So that and feeling. And so there's a lot of science that backs this up to say that if you can become aware of the feeling, you actually clear a hell of a lot of thought that's taking up space in your head. So there's something like, I think the average person thinks something like 60,000 thoughts a day. Now it's going to be pretty hard to be conscious of all of them, right? And still do other stuff, right? It's going to be pretty impossible. So, you can do mindfulness in the sense of the internal language, the internal dialogue, the self-talk, and you can develop self-awareness from there. But pinned beneath and attached to, linked to, anchored to these thoughts, thousands of thoughts can be linked to one emotion, one feeling, one source. So if you feel the feeling and you get a perspective beyond that, and you're able to face it, feel it, let it go, well, actually, that then goes all of those thoughts and they shift them out of your headspace. Whereas then you've got this space there. In the space that's created there that you witness yourself in is presence. So does that kind of make sense as a phenomenon, first of all, as why it's so important, why it's even more powerful to acknowledge the feeling rather than only the thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about that being present is it can just be moment by moment, because the head's going to fill up again, isn't it, with more, a lot of it nonsense, actually.
Exactly. And you said it perfectly in terms of like where we have to acknowledge where we've come from, the foundation of, as we become a bit more aware as we get older, and we happens by grace, to be honest. It's not just by practice, it's also just by grace, it just happens. But we've got a load of backlog of ways of being that includes suppression and repression of feelings. So, I just learn behavior from, where we are, where the world is, and the conditioning that we have, and from our parents and grandparents, etc. That's just the way things are. So there's an acceptance is the key, first of all. And so as you actually, you perfectly said there, Judy, is that even when it has to be moment by moment, because that's the only way acceptance comes in. We are living constantly. There is only the present moment, but the feelings, one of the biggest things about the feelings is that it is a constant flow. It's constantly moving, it's constantly changing, constantly shifting, unless you've got really fixed perspective of thoughts and you're just holding it there, holding that flow, because ultimately, as its essence, feeling is energy flowing, a bit like a river, right? And it's flowing all the time. So we can not be aware of it and not be aware of the flow, but it doesn't mean that it's not flowing. We can also dam it with our fixed way of looking at it, and it holds this kind of energy in your body. A good way of looking at this is like, not grieving. So like, I know from when my granddad passed at 17 all the way up till 27, I didn't grieve him. I thought I was, but I hadn't. And so much was built up, and in one go, all came out. And we usually call that kind of like a panic attack. But fortunately for me, is in a very kind of safe environment where there's, awareness of emotional agility was there in my setting, and it came out safely. I mean, just to give a more kind of personal context to it, that it's not just a load of theory. This is literally, imbued in us being human beings.
I actually love what you said about the dam, that analogy, Simon, because when we suppress those emotions or kind of lock them in, whatever, then, and it builds up like a dam, then actually maybe that's when people get the feeling that if they were to express their feelings, everything would just burst, and just fall apart.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I remember particularly thinking, I don't even know how I'm going to be if I let go of this. If I let go of all this build-up of energy, I don't know. Surely I'll be a different person. Surely I'll be going absolutely crazy. Am I going to be safe while this is happening? Is the person next to me? Am I going to have any sense of almost like control of myself? Or is something just going to be just happen? Because it's letting go. So if you're used to regulating yourself through control, which in terms of feelings, that's repression and suppression, which we all do as human beings, we all will do it. And we'll have maybe different levels of comfort in terms of letting go. But it's the deepest level of you, the things that informs who you think you are, your identity, and you're letting go of that content. Right. And so there's this kind of like part of you that's absolutely steeped in fear, and goes, oh, no, 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 all these thoughts that we were talking about. I remember when it let go, and it was like a chimney like pouring out of me, like, so, you know, it's real like just energy phenomenon, and really strange experience, nothing I had experienced up until that point. I could see like the thoughts that were pinning it down like billboards at that point, and they were, am I going crazy? The lady that was helping me at the time does she think I'm going crazy? um, am I okay? Is she okay? And it was all kind of fear-based questions, really. And ultimately, it was absolutely fine. And on the other side of it, I felt, well, let's put it this way. I'd built up so much energy. I was kind of like living as a floating head, seeing things as, you know, everything is black and white and intellectual. Um, and that's just the way I'd learned to be for that period of time. But once I let go of all that feeling, massive build up in one go, it was just literally minutes. I could feel into my body. I could feel lighter. I could feel just like an ease, a peacefulness. And you know, to give you an idea, I was a physiotherapist at the time, working in a private practice and a lecturer. The way I was kind of thinking about my body was, I'd be thinking, you know, like I knew all the anatomy, so I'd literally like imagine the anatomy there. So I couldn't feel into, let's say, my hand. I'd be thinking, oh, that's a metacarpal there, and there's a phalange there, and the, you know, all the bones and the muscles and blah blah blah. But so I'd see it already kind of conceptually abstract myself, not feeling in, or what was the actual sensation that I'm feeling there, noticing. Right, it'd be complete repression and suppression of numbing. Right, and I think a lot of people don't realize that that's a very common, you know, that's what they think is themselves, and that's normal,
Yeah.
right? And it is common. It's
It
very,
is, and
very
actually,
common.
I certainly have felt. I felt for years and years that my head was separate from my body, that I just
Yeah,
didn't go down into my body.
yeah.
Um, but I just want to say about, you know, what you talked about, you know, when you're letting go. The letting go sometimes doesn't have to be a massive thing, doesn't
No,
it?
it
It can
doesn't.
be a little, just a little thing, a little release of something.
Definitely, definitely, exactly that. The phenomenon is still there, is always going to be that little bit of that bit of fear there, right? But so the dynamic of that one big letting go that I've had was more, for me, if I'm honest, I really care about sharing these things with other people. I want it for myself because I want to feel better myself. I want to enjoy being myself. But what I also really care about is that I can't really make sense to my own existence or why I'm here if I can't then share it. Right. Well, you know, I want to be able to do that as well. So I wanted almost an experience where I could very consciously see the mechanisms and notice them happening in the moment in order to be very conscious of them, and then to be able to use that to impart and share with people. But absolutely right there, Julie, is that it is ultimately where I feel that it is now, and I wanted to take this further, test it on myself, and then become even more aware of it, and then share the kind of mechanism behind it. Is that I wanted to do this every time, like all the time. Why not right now when I'm talking to you? Why can't I? Why wouldn't I do that now? Why wouldn't I let go? Why wouldn't I do that when I'm with my clients? Why wouldn't I do that when I'm with my little boy or with my wife? Why wouldn't I do that when I'm going for a run? Why wouldn't, in every moment, right? And that's really the kind of principles that I try and hold myself accountable to. I'm human, so I definitely not perfect in that, but I'm very passionate about creating awareness that we can let go, become present, and employ that emotional agility in every moment. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the fact that you use the word machinery.
Mm.
Machinery?
Mechanics, mechanisms. Yeah,
Mechanics, machinery, because it is, you know, the neural patterns, isn't it? It's
yeah,
just, it is like a machine that operates, that if we don't interrupt it and become conscious of it and work with it, then it's just going to keep doing what it's doing, and we're going to keep having those thoughts, you know, and those thoughts are not going to go anywhere, are they? They're going to, you know, they are going to revisit us at certain times, but actually they may not be as loud, or we may not notice them for so long. We've got some say in the matter. Would you agree
yeah.
with that?
I do agree. I do agree. And I would add this from my experience is that if you really do visit the underlying, if you can isolate thoughts, so if you can employ some level of awareness to of mindfulness and notice a collection of thoughts, then what you can do is that behind thoughts, you can start to notice, what is this group of thoughts making me ignore in my, what is the most important thing that I'm ignoring based on these thoughts? And you're drawn to somewhere in your body, right? And so you're drawn to a sensational experience in your body. Now that's the part, this is when emotional agility comes in, because you're already doing it. So you've isolated thoughts. It's almost like a Google search. You send off the search and the search guides you somewhere. Now your awareness is now stuck and can stay with a sensational experience. Usually what people do, whether they're conscious of it or not, is they go, nope, don't want to be with that. Because the reason why you're drawn to that is because it's feelings that would have normally flown through, and you didn't want them, you didn't like them, you called them bad at some point in your life, and now you down them up. And then you've gone, well, the only way for me to distract myself from all of these is create all these ideas around it. And right. And so, you can have a whole philosophical constructs of why I don't want to feel this feeling. Right. And this is the reason why, blah, 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 blah. And this, you got a perfect distraction from it. So beneath that collection, you can isolate the thoughts. You now got the feeling in the center of in your body somewhere, usually around your heart, but it can be anywhere. It can be literally anywhere in your body, and just outside of your body as well. And at that point, there's actually the thing that you've initially judged is you've gone into fear mode. All you need to do is actually stay there and feel it. It's as simple as that. You stay there and feel it. There are things that help, the ingredients that support you do that. It's awareness, and it's your breathing. And your breathing is a good way to hold your awareness there, because otherwise, like, how do you know the difference between awareness and thought? It's hard to differentiate the two. And you might just go back into the thought that you isolated and you don't even realize. Right. So we're talking about the mechanisms behind the being. So sometimes it's not that easy to recognize. You isolate them, feeling, stay there and feel it. You'll also notice that there's a feeling, there's beyond the feeling or emotion, there's an energy behind it. So we're going deeper, deeper, deeper. And if you can stay there and notice that the energy, if you just feel it, you just let it be, you don't need to do anything with it, let it be, it starts to dissolve, fizzle out, and the emotion goes. I call it a process of face it, feel it, let it go. The letting go is not an active part. It's actually more of you just feel it, feel it, feel it until it's gone, right? Because it's always meant to flow. It's always meant to flow. You stopped it with your will. So you're just dissolving the will. The will was being formed by that fear, and then it goes away. And what happens, it's almost a bit like a hot air balloon in many ways, right? You now it's got the energy of itself, and it kind of takes off like the basket with a feeling, and also the hot air balloon of all those thoughts. So that then goes out of it's no longer in taking up your presence. So those thoughts that you were mentioning, they are gone, and they are also gone for good, because they're no longer needing to be there for the emotion that it was, validate, or the reason not to feel it needs to be validated. So you're really building up this capacity to go, I'm here in life. I'm willing to be me. I'm willing to show up. I'm willing to engage with the experience of life. You're building a relationship with it. And that's a very empowering feeling to have. So those thoughts, always battling with those thoughts. My suggestion would be to go deeper, isolate those thoughts, recognize that there's a collection of thoughts. What are they? What is that? What are you avoiding then as a consequence of these thoughts? And you'll be drawn to somewhere in your body. And don't be scared. This is a really simple process. It's the only reason it's fear itself. Sometimes it's fear of fear itself. It's so simple. It doesn't have to be complex. And you just stay there and feel it. You feel it. And in essence, this is what everybody does in meditation. If meditation, you build these kind of awareness of these different planes, and then as you go, then you can go. If you can do it with your eyes closed, my question is, could you do it with your eyes open? Could you do it while you're doing something? And then we go into the conversation of, could being present and employing emotional agility be possible in everything that you're doing? And I think absolutely.
Powerful. You got to feel it to heal it. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that, Simon. Thank
you.
So for those of you watching or listening, if you've been really inspired by what Simon has said, then check out his links. They will be below this video, as will mine. And do get in touch with him. He's doing all sorts of things. And all there is for me to say is, Simon, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your wisdom, and thank you everyone else for watching.